Okay, let's begin with some practice. Go ahead, sit comfortably. Take a moment to check in with your body. Just notice the body. Notice the weight of the body on the chair. Really begin to notice the physical aspects. Notice your posture as you're sitting. Don't try to correct anything. Don't try to judge anything. Just notice and see what happens. Notice the various sounds in the room. Notice the various sensations in the body. Open up to them completely. Whatever arises, pleasant or unpleasant, simply allow it to arise and leave. Just be willing to open up and experience both the pleasant and the unpleasant with the attitude of the witness, Sakshi Bhava. Allowing experience to flow naturally. Without interference from the mind. As the various sensations arise, simply allow them to arise. If you notice they're difficult to tolerate, you can simply try to name the experience. For example, if it's the experience of anxiety, just say, oh, anxiety. Give it the label of anxiety and leave it be. Just allow it to be. Or it could be pain. Just give it the label pain and allow it to be. Push no experience away, nor try to hold on to any pleasant experience. If joy arises, let it arise. Happiness, or various other pleasant sensations arise in the body. Let them arise. Let whatever is arising arise. You may notice as you let go of the struggle with thought, sensations, no longer conned into the pursuit of the pleasant or the avoidance of the unpleasant. You may notice a sense of stability, of peace. Just notice it. Not trying to hold on to the peace or the pleasant sensation of bliss. These are simply peace or bliss. If your mind gets lost or wanders, simply bring it back to the body. Let the body physically anchor you to the present, anchor you to physical reality. Just allow yourself to rest as body. Sit, rest, and simply observe and allow. Allow yourself to notice all of it, the various sensations in the body, the various sounds. Slowly, very slowly, open your eyes and relax. So just notice, just sit. I think the simplest instruction, and what they would, what in the Zen side, they'd call it just zazen, just sitting. Nothing else is required. It's a primary technique. It's a simple technique. And in many ways, because it is a simple technique, it's also an effective technique. It takes a lot of the manipulation out of the equation. But then at times it can be a little bit, I would say, dull, for lack of a better word, because the mind quickly gets bored and tired. And that's true with any technique. And that's why what is important in sustaining any meditation process is not really a technique per se, it's more the attitude. So if you can sit with the clear objective of what you really want, and it really has to be what you want. So if you, for example, if it's just a matter of you want a little bit more peace, a little bit more quiet in your life, then that's fine. It's just a matter of having that intention and just sitting and observing, and then that spaciousness, that's peace, does, that particular side effect starts to take root. Right? If it's you're looking for something, you could say deeper, existential, the fundamental questions of who am I, then that's the intention to really sit with. Really inquiring into what's real, what's true, what am I, what is the true nature of reality? What is it that I'm projecting on the world? What is it that I've been projecting on myself? Let me see it. It's that intention that brings it about. Because I guess it's the wonderful power of intention. It's the wonderful power of almost the mind and thought. What one thinks, one becomes. So if the center of life is your thinking, egoic consciousness, one becomes that. And that's what's considered normal for 99.99% of humanity. It's simply the confines of their own mental noise. And we judge the world by the various sensations and various experiences that our own tendencies bring about. Our own sanskaras bring about certain experiences, and those get associated with external stimuluses. Some are sort of hardwired in, right? Certain things are attractive by biology. But even those hardwired in, like, for example, sweet, salty, fatty foods, are hardwired in from a biological standpoint to be pleasant. The human biology, and everyone's biology is a bit different on this, but generalizing, sweet, salty, fatty foods have been considered biologically adaptive to keep this life going for most of the million years of human existence. And so it's wired in that way. So I'm attracted to that. That's instinct. And that instinct is linked indirectly to survival. And when it's linked to survival and it's in that mode, it's completely adaptive, you could say. Just like monkeys, just like birds, bees, whatever, all the animal creatures that you see out there, they're all following that same process. They've been hardwired. Certain things are pleasant to a creature and certain things are unpleasant, like to the vulture, right? Dead bodies taste good because that is how that vulture is biologically wired. To pigs, they eat anything on the street. That's biologically wired. It's all pleasant. To, you could say, to any other creature, right? They're biologically wired a certain way to seek certain things, to seek things that are pleasant, and they're wired that way because those things that are generally pleasant for them keeps that species going. And that's also true with us. The general things that we crave were built in to keep the species going. The issue now is survival is gone. Ever since we transitioned to agriculture, and even more since we transitioned into this modern age, I don't need all of that anymore. And it's actually, it works against my survival. If I overeat, it hurts the body now because I have the capacity to consume and the availability to consume much more than needed for the body. The instinct hasn't changed. But underneath instinct, and so you could say there's the instinct. So what I project is predominantly sanskar, inside and out. It's instinct coupled with experiences. That becomes sanskar. And based on those experiences, I develop sort of ideas about, my identity, my limited identity, a little bit of ideas about it. And I can look upon my identity with a sense of pleasantness or unpleasantness. I can be satisfied with my identity, or I can be unsatisfied with my identity. In the same way, when I look upon the world, I can be satisfied with what I see. It can be pleasant or unpleasant. And a lot of what we're doing here is just simple projection. How do we know it's simple projection? Because if you take two people to the same experience, they don't necessarily experience it the same way. What may be really pleasurable to one person may not be as pleasurable to the other. Certain sports I like, certain sports I don't like, right? Preferences. We develop these preferences. But then there becomes this whole coupled into this with that strong identity. Certain things are mine. I hold on to very, very strongly. Certain ideas are mine more than anything else. So these ideas that I really, really hold on to tightly, that's what tends to give the most suffering in life. And so any meditative technique is, well, let me say, generally meditative techniques are designed to loosen this. So you can loosen either by observing. As you observe, you start to see that the ideas start to just sort of unravel. it's like a knot that sort of loosens on its own. So there's a loosening going on as you sit in silence, because things slow down, and as things slow down, they don't have that momentum to project as well. They lose their hold on you, and as they do, some of them drop away. So there's a loosening of sanskars, and some sanskars just drop. And that's the meditative process. The meditative process is a destructive, to use a more pleasant term, I like the, I guess the postmodernist in psychology have coined the term deconstructive process. All growth is a deconstructive process. In order for you to grow into an adult, you have to give up the idea of being a child. That's why growing up is painful. Because there's a part of you that wants to cling and be a child. There's a part of you that child worldview is very comforting. And that part that's the child worldview starts to meet up against reality. And then it gets beaten by reality, not literally, hopefully not literally for most of you. But that reality reshapes, and that becomes the adult you. But in order to transition from child to adult, I had to give up being a child. In the same way, in order to get past the false identity, what we call the egoic identity, to transition between adulthood to, you could say, a more mature adulthood, there can be all sorts of spectacular terms on this, like people can say enlightened or moksha or things, basically having a greater level of freedom. In order to have a greater level of freedom, I need to be willing to give up the ideas that limit me. There has to be a willingness to. So the willingness to let go, right, leads to this growth. Any questions on this? And let me just say, that's why also at times we run into struggle here. Anytime you take a system, especially the mind, it's a cognitive miser, and therefore it doesn't want to learn new things or unlearn old things, same thing. So as this loosens, then there's experiences of, it can be like an experience of dying. It can be an experience of afraid. You could have fear rising up. It's a very common experience in meditation, actually, is fear arising. And that fear arising in meditation is actually a good thing, because it means some of the boundaries are being questioned. And the important thing in that phase, as fear arises or unpleasant experiences arise, is don't conclude it's a bad thing. It's just the unpleasant. It's the unpleasant or the unawake part of you that's looking, right? It's looking for freedom. And along with it, there's the part that's afraid of freedom. The human mind, the human ego is afraid to be free, because freedom means letting go of control. And the function of the egoic mind is control. So to some extent, moksha, or this complete freedom, you could say, is also termed as the death of ego, because at that point, what by definition the death of ego is the letting go of control. And as control is let go of, you essentially have greater freedom. Can everyone see the tension? So, and this is where I think in meditation it helps to be clear about what you want. If it's just simply to relax a little, just sit in silence and you relax a little. That's fine. And but if it is something deeper, if it's something that you want to investigate, for lack of a better word, that somewhere in your life you've come to the conclusion that life can't just be about this. It's a true conclusion. And that's where that life is sort of empty. We call that an existential crisis. Then feel free to question. Feel free to sit. Feel free to let go and see where it takes you. Any questions? So we run into these paradoxes where freedom, and people, when we say freedom, unfortunately, there's the less mature ideas of freedom. What appeals to people about this idea of freedom is the idea of being freed from responsibility. And an experience that's generally that is a childish way of viewing things, but it's not an uncommon way of viewing things. Freedom isn't shedding responsibility per se. It's more accepting responsibility. And at the same time, in the same context, accepting the limitations that are along with that responsibility. For example, I am responsible for my life. I make decisions every day that affect the life of my life and those around me. Right? I'm just stating a simple fact. Whatever decisions, whether I choose to acknowledge it or not, impact me and impact those around me. Just stating simple fact. However, I'm not in control of all aspects of my life. So I can't control the outcome completely. And this is where that freedom comes in. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they have the serenity prayer. It's like, oh God, let me, basically address the things in my life that need to be done. So if it's a task that needs to be done, let it be done. Let me let go of the things that I have no control over. And let me have the wisdom to understand or distinguish between the two. And that's essentially it. That's moksha, that's freedom. It's acknowledging responsibility, because you are responsible for your life and for things around you. Acknowledging that impact, and at the same time acknowledging that there's no control in that, really. And as the need for control of an outcome disappears or becomes less and less important, less and less primary, there's interesting things that happen. You become open to possibility. And then and with that, there's a certain amount of creativity that happens. And the outcomes are not predictable. And that's what gives people sort of that discomfort with it. Unfortunately, in the society we're living with, it's all about control. Or the illusion of control. Wall Street, every company is judged by how well they project the illusion of control. And you see every so often the illusion collapses, and then all the stocks collapse at once. Right? It's like that the control just drops away. So it's letting go of the illusion of control, accepting, accept. Okay. Any last questions? Otherwise, we'll go on to the next technique. Okay. Sit straight. Focus a bit on the breath, just to ground yourself. This is a supportive practice, or it could also be a primary practice of loving kindness. I'm going to switch the lens from which I view the world in this meditation. I'm going to apply the lens of whatever experience is coming or arising, whatever thought is coming or arising inside me, of loving kindness, of consolation, of empathy for, of compassion for. So to whatever thoughts are arising, I will have a compassionate response, especially when they're thoughts of suffering. When it's happy thoughts, I'll just have a, sort of a just that wonderful response. Usually they're easier anyway. But for the more troubling thoughts, a more compassionate response. How would I view the person who's suffering? How would I deal with that person who's suffering if they were my friend, right? My close friend? What would I tell that suffering, right? How would I address that suffering? Actually, in this meditation, if you have two chairs, it can also be, or two places to sit, it can also be helpful. So if you want to take a minute and just get a second chair, because then you can get up from, the idea would be is you're going to look an aspect of suffering, bring up an aspect of suffering, meaning there could be that part of you that's afraid, insecure. That's a common one. There could be that part of you that's angry and frustrated. That's another common one. There could be that part of you that's innately jealous of people. That's another common one. Any of these tendencies that we're holding on to, rather than viewing them as, well, you could say something ugly, you can also view them as something ugly, that's also fine. But we're going to look at those, any one of those we'll choose, invite that characteristic as a person sitting across from you. In one technique, they call inviting it as a demon, your inner demon. So you can even do that. You can picture that jealousy as some really angry demon, right? You can picture that anger as a really angry demon. You can picture that fear as a really like afraid child, very insecure, the insecurity of a child. And we're going to invite that aspect of you to be in front of you in that chair. Or you can even choose another place, but just inviting it. That'll be part one. Then after inviting that, we're going to just observe it with a compassionate response, as a mother would to a child. Just, okay, acknowledging it. Everyone clear with this technique? So I'm sure right now everyone is sort of busy choosing, but choose. You can choose a jealousy, you can choose anger, you can choose fear, you can choose something else that seems to be something you want to work on right now. And we're going to visualize that aspect of you in front of you. Sort of like, and you watching those uh, 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 Hindi movies, when the God is born from the from inside you, and it comes out and presents there. So that aspect of you, visualize it's coming out of you and has taken shape, form right in front of you. Okay. Everyone clear on this?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, then let's begin. Sit comfortably. Take a moment to just center on the breath. Choose an emotion that troubles you. It could be anger. It could be lust. It could be jealousy, fear, anxiety, worry. And sort of notice that part inside you. Notice it so it becomes a bit more central. Notice whatever emotion that is, whatever aspect that is. Now allow that emotion to incarnate in front of you. Visualize it's in the form of an inner demon. It could be the scared demon, could be the angry demon, the jealous demon. Visualize the form of that demon. And invite that to basically come to tea with you. Basically sit in front of you. Look at its fierce form. It may even look somewhat intimidating. Now really acknowledge that this particular form may be looking for something. It may look intimidating, but like all suffering creatures, it's looking for something. Like the fearful creature may be looking for love, for support, for acknowledgement, compassion. The frustrated, angry demon may be looking to be acknowledged, loved, respected, cared for. The jealous demon may also just be looking to be acknowledged, appreciated for its own uniqueness. Whatever demon is sitting in front of you, give it that love, compassion, acknowledge its hurt. And just provide it with just acknowledge its pain, its suffering, with a sense of openness and compassion, as you would a friend, as you would a child, as you would any human being. And notice how the demon changes, evolves. Relaxes as a result of that compassion. And just continue to provide it with that love, compassion, acknowledgement, and attention. Continue to provide it with that attention, with that sense of compassion. With a sense of love, as you would any creature that's suffering. Just sit with loving kindness and compassion towards that. Just continue to sit with that sense of loving kindness, compassion towards that. And hold whatever it is in that loving embrace. Allowing it to again enter back into you, transformed. Okay, slowly, very slowly, open your eyes and relax. We'll conclude with a prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Patrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chetanji. Good night.
Good night.